I like the way that you break things down and make them understandable.
I really have to thank you for that because I wouldn't be where I am now with him if it wasn't for you.
Right? Yeah, this makes a lot of sense, and it helps a lot.
Hi there, and welcome to Season 2 of Make Him Wonder. Lots of exciting changes taking place this season to help you fully become the Wonder Woman you want to be. That means living in 80/20. It's why I've created the 80/20 Wonder Club, a unique multimedia membership experience that will give you multiple episodes of Make Him Wonder the moment you join. While you can still listen via your favorite listening platform, you'll only have access to 6 episodes a year. That's only 1 episode every 2 months. But when you become a member of the 80/20 Wonder Club, you get episodes of Make Him Wonder as they are released. No more waiting to listen and learn. You get never-before access to me to ask questions and have a multimedia library of material at your fingertips whenever you want. Best of all, it's just 80 cents for the first month, so you can check it out. Make this your year to get real and get results. Become an 80/20 Wonder Woman so you can finally get everything you want. Go to the 8020wonder.club and become a member. You'll be supporting me to continue Make Him Wonder and giving yourself a unique opportunity to become the 80/20 Wonder you want to be. Go now to the 8020wonder.club. That's the 8020wonder.club, and I'll see you in the clubhouse.
Sick of sacrificing or settling in your romantic life? Welcome to Make Him Wonder with Coach Paula Grooms, where women struggling in real relationships ask the expert. Unscripted, unfiltered, understandable coaching conversations to help passionate women succeed in love.
Hi there, and welcome to Make Him Wonder. I'm your host, Coach Paula, a dating and relationship coach, licensed social worker, and author of the book, Why Won't He Commit? How a Man Decides to Make You the One. My guest today is 44-year-old Alejandra, who is back from episode 69 in season 1 to update us on all that has happened in her relationship with confirmed bachelor Jayden, who she met online. If you'll recall, when Alejandra and I talked back in late February of 2021, she had been dating Jayden for a little over 2 months. At that time, Alejandra was concerned that things may have moved too quickly and that she might not get the proposal and marriage she desired before the end of the year. Welcome, Alejandra.
Hi, thank you, Coach Paula.
So nice to have you back again.
Thank you.
And truth be told, we have been talking regularly because following the podcast, we decided to work together to help you get the proposal you certainly deserve and that you desired. So I want to catch up the audience on that and tell our listeners what has transpired.
Yes, thank you, Paula.
Absolutely. So tell us, where are things now?
Well, now, a lot has gone on, but the most important part is we are engaged.
Congrats. Yes, we worked hard on that, and you did such an amazing job.
Yes, thank you, Paula. But definitely it was, due to your guidance that we were able to get there. We went through some difficulties along the road that I would not have been able to push through without your help.
Well, thanks, but I really, and I remember those hard weeks. There were some really tough weeks in there that I just wonder what you were thinking when I was kind of guiding you in what, it's very easy for me to do, being in the objective position I'm in, but being in it and doing the hard work that you did, which was, not taking his texts and dealing with all that you dealt with. How do you view that now in hindsight?
Viewing it in hindsight, of course, I'm really glad that I listened to you. If it wasn't for what you were telling me to do, I don't think I would have been able to do it. It was so tough, to really pull back completely and go no contact, and then just not just that, but then the whole play up until not seeing him at all until he actually came up with the engagement ring. So it was really hard, but I could see, of course, I wasn't sure. I was like, oh no, I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. But everybody around me that was seeing what was happening, they were like, no, listen to your coach. Listen to your coach. She knows what she's doing. So, yeah.
Wow. I mean, I'm really, in talking to you now and thinking back, do you want to take us through some of the parts that happened and how it all began? Because we started working together and you guys were dating kind of just fine. I think you had met online, maybe 5 months before that?
So we met, possibly less than that. So we met in November online, but then we texted like for almost a month on and off before going on our first date in December. So it had been like 2.5 months that we had been dating when we had our call.
And if you're listening now, you may want to stop out and go to episode 69 in season 1 and hear our conversation in real time when that was going on. And it was right before I had not talked to you before, and then we decided to work together because I believed you could take this to engagement, albeit there were some things about Jayden that we were kind of concerned about, meaning that he was a confirmed bachelor in his 50s, and there wasn't really any signs that he was going to necessarily change that anytime soon. Would you say that's true?
Yes, correct. Mm-hmm.
So it was really a leap of faith on your part.
Originally, I actually thought the relationship was pretty secure, but when you showed me where the possible falls were, including, of course, the fact that he has never been married, engaged, had children, none of that his entire life, you definitely opened my eyes to that.
And you had been in a long-term marriage, or I think you had been married twice, is that correct?
Yes, I was married for 20 years and divorced with 2 children from that marriage. And then I married very young at the age of 19, 20. And then I had a second marriage, and unfortunately that husband passed away after 1.5 years together.
Mm-hmm. I love your story because it is such a hopeful, wonderful story and journey. Because so many women in their 40s, they say, oh my gosh, it's too late, or, and even later. And it's just not. I mean, all the time I come across and help women, too, get to, I think you'll know in the program you were in, there was another woman there, that same thing. She had met someone who actually, and believe it or not, he wasn't even divorced, and we took that to engagement in a very, very short time. What do you think was really the game changer, and what you say you didn't think maybe of doing the things that I had suggested? What do you think really made the difference?
I think it's several things, and even talking with my fiance about things, one thing that came up not that long ago, which I mentioned to you in one of our weekly sessions, was that I had waited for us to become intimate. And I didn't wait as long as you would have wanted me to wait, but nonetheless, I did make him wait longer than I think the average person does, but I didn't realize until I had a conversation with him about it. Well, of course, he back then even had a conversation with me about it, but like what was going on, that we weren't becoming intimate, right? But then not that long ago, he told me that in all these years of being a bachelor, he had never, ever been with a woman that didn't become intimate with him by the third date. So that alone was like huge. Obviously, the fact that I made him wait, like a month and a half. But I mean, okay, it doesn't sound like that much, but it was still definitely not by the third date. And many more dates than that went by when it was definitely something that was a big deal to him from what he told me recently.
And this is, you're an example of what I talk about all the time, meaning that men, no matter what, they put women in one of two categories. I talk about all the time Freud's Madonna whore dichotomy. And this waiting that you did, even though, we could look at it, I remember talking to you and saying, in the scheme of things, this was kind of waiting.
Right, yeah. I mean, for him, it definitely was. I was surprised considering that this wasn't even like a person that's like, I don't know. I just think of a guy that like is having sex with so many women would have been somebody different. This is more like a nerd person. So I didn't think that he was having sex by the third date with all the women he had dated.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? I mean, it's really telling, but he was educated and of a certain ilk, whereby I'm sure he was with the same type of women in terms of that, and yet I can imagine that, and he was a good boyfriend, correct? He was
Yes.
a good boyfriend to you, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, then of course we had definitely a very bad turn of events.
Great, and I want to hear about that, but before we get to that, I want you to say the other thing that you thought it was. In other words, you said one of the main things was waiting to have sex, and even though it was just like you said, maybe a month or a little over a month, that was waiting enough for him to put you in that first category.
Yes, obviously, from what he's told me, for sure.
What has he told you?
I mean, just things that I hear come out of his mouth, just without me even asking sometimes. Definitely, I can see the category that he has me in. I mean, he knows, he's like, oh, no, I know you're not the type of girl that, when, I don't know, some comment about some other girl, I know when you're that, you're not the type that would be, sleeping around or this or that, or, just examples of things that other people have done. And then he says, yeah, I know you're not like that, without me ever having mentioned anything. It's just in his mindset, that's how he sees me.
Exactly, yes. Mm-hmm. And it's so par for the course.
When he does ask me, like, about my history, I always tell him I don't think that's relevant to our situation. I think it would actually be hurtful. You don't need to know that.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's really worthy opponent strategy. And he accepts it, right?
Yes. I also, though, I know that I can't ask him the same, and either the same, like, how would I explain it? I don't ask him about his history because that would open the door also. So.
You got it. That's exactly right. And you know what? It's not going to help you either. Because
right.
It's the past. You guys are forging a new relationship, and all that matters is how you are with each other. And anything that he knows will lessen his wonder. And really, it is incumbent upon us to deal with that wonder, which is not really comfortable for us, but given the alternative, it's appropriate to do so. And as you can see, it works very well. So what was the other thing?
Well, definitely, I'm always very conscious, not as much so now that we're engaged, and even though I'm still all the time, but definitely of not being the one that initiates. I still, even now that we're engaged, do not initiate texts unless it's something extremely important that I need to communicate with him, or definitely I never ever call him even. Like if I have something that I want to share with him, just that's not important, I wait first for him to contact me and then I share it with him.
Perfect. Yep. Very, very important. And overlooked a lot of times, especially as things, because now you've been engaged for how many months?
Since mid-May.
And that is, for those listening, because these things are evergreen, it's probably a good
4.5
almost
months.
6 months away. Almost.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 months, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also as far as so like how I know these are all things that I keep in mind, obviously, from what I've learned from you, from reading, the rules, from all that. So, but definitely, like when we first spoke, I thought I was being rulesy, and I wasn't being as rulesy as I should be from all the things you called me out on. And definitely, like I don't even initiate either, like be it in person or by other forms of communication. I'm never the one to initiate. Uh, it saying or displaying affection. So I always wait him to be the one, oh, babe, I love you so much or whatever. And they're like, oh, honey, I love you too. I'm never the one to do it first.
Is that hard not to do?
It's kind of, it just requires a little bit of consciousness, but it's become second nature almost. Like a lot of things, sometimes like I have the initial instinct to do something, and then I say no, hold it back to myself. But it's become second nature to that hold it back.
Yep. Yeah. It's in some ways it's kind of sad that we have to do that, but it's creating love in him, and ultimately that's what it is that you desire. And from what I know from working with you weekly, you certainly get it in return. You get
oh my gosh, I get it in spades. I mean, it's really incredible. I sometimes will consciously be like, I want to go hug him or do something, and I'll be like, nope, wait, I'm going to wait. I'm going to stay sitting here in this other room, and before I know it, he's running over to where I am to come be affectionate towards me. So it definitely is the best way to do it. And I mean, it's like all the time, it's like gushing to me, to people about me. Right now, as we're on the podcast, I'm getting a message from him, saying, I have an urgent need for one of your warm and tender hugs. So, yeah, but I wasn't the one who initiated, and I'm not answering him back right away about it, even though we're engaged. So, definitely, yeah.
It's fantastic, and it's what it takes. And, it's when we see how it works, and I see it with women that I'm working with all the time, how it works, it's incredibly difficult to do, and especially if we're not used to doing it, how we have to turn it around and wait.
Yes, for sure. Definitely. And it shows so much even in the way he verbalizes things to me, that he says, I've never felt this way in a relationship. He said to me, like, I've never imagined that it could be this good. And really, I'm not doing anything. It's him who's doing it all.
That's great. It's so great. So tell us a little bit about the story and the difficult part.
So the difficult part was that sometime early on in the relationship, he did something very bad, which he still is like apologetic about now. But anyways, I guess something that whether he's done it before or not, I don't know. But he just ghosted me. He disappeared on me. And I started kind of noticing first that he was going backwards a bit in his communications with me. And I was out of the country. I started reaching out to him because I was like, this is a bit strange, even though I knew I shouldn't reach out. But I was like, this is weird. And then when I definitely noticed it was something off, I totally cut it. And then we talked about it, and he did not reach out to me. Well, then he reached out to me, but just something random. I did not answer it back, which was just like a happy holiday of the holiday that there was back then. And we then went into a lot of, in our sessions, we also spoke privately, you and I, Coach Paula, and you really, I was going through such a difficult time. I was crying. I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? He was not reaching out to me at all. He just completely ghosted me. And then that went on for approximately, I believe, 2 very difficult weeks where I didn't know what I was going to do because I thought the relationship was going so well. And I couldn't believe he didn't just disappear on me like that. So finally you said, okay, we got to do something about this. And you helped me craft a wonderful letter that was really like, I mean, if you want to, I don't know if you want to say what some of the details of the letter, but it was basically a goodbye, but it was in a way also, what was it, like informing him that, this had been wonderful and I really had seen it, that it was going to go the distance, but, now goodbye. And then he wrote to me the next day after that letter was delivered to him, and he said that he did see a future with me and that if I would be open to speaking with him. When we did speak, we got together. We went on one date to speak.
But if I can interrupt you there,
yeah.
I'm somehow remembering that you didn't answer that right away or something of the sort.
I really don't recall. I think I waited to speak with you. Yes, probably. Yes.
And then
yeah.
I remember him coming to you a lot, trying to get your attention.
Well, what happens is that then we went on a date. I don't recall, maybe the next day after and then we went on the date, which is where he told me, he says, look, I definitely want a future with you, which I thought was odd. And then he says to me, he told me what he did, which was that he brought a woman to live in his home, but that he says there was nothing between them. It was an ex-girlfriend. Whatever crazy story really doesn't matter to me. What the reason was, whether he had something, he said there was nothing between them. Doesn't really matter. Irrelevant. Mm-hmm. And he says that if I was willing to be open to us continuing the relationship, that he was offering me an engagement, which totally shocked me. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this man has only known me for 2.5 months and he's offering an engagement? Really? Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then that was when obviously we spoke, and then you told me, okay, you cannot, he's going to try to, get back, see a way that he can get back with you. So we went, I continued, I was, you had me declining his dates, declining everything. He sent flowers to my house asking me on a date, and it wasn't until he actually said that we were going to go, he was like, okay, X date, I'm planning something for us, which was, the engagement. I deducted, it was obvious from what he said. So about it was a whole month and a half, I think, before we actually got together then. And he then proposed to me. But I really had to hold back because he kept on doing everything possible, texting me all day, telling me things, and seeing if there was a way that I would go out with him. But until he actually said that it was going to be to get together for the proposal, you didn't let me go out with him. And it worked, he rushed to get the ring, so...
It's so interesting because, sitting in my seat, it's so easy to say that. I mean, I know it. I know that men are formulaic about it. I know that in instituting what I call my lure him in strategy, which is a program of mine, that it works like nothing else in terms of getting a man to get to his deepest feelings and make a decision, and you did it completely. And I can imagine that those weeks were so incredibly difficult for you, but you really somehow, and that's, I guess, what I always wonder about is, how did you have that kind of faith in it?
I had faith that it would work because it's funny because exactly, we all know as women, when we like someone, tends to not work out, and when we don't care for somebody, they go crazy after us. So I knew from my 2 previous marriages, honestly, that I hadn't really paid attention to these 2 people, and that was what got them to commit to me. So now that I actually was with someone that I really wanted to be with, I said, I've got to bite the bullet and do it this way. And, either it's going to work or it's not going to work. I mean, I know that that's how it works. It's just hard. If I didn't have you guiding me and holding my hand through it, it was very easy to take the wrong step, because even he was being so nice and wanting me to go out with him. And you said, no, if you go out with him again, you're going to wind up in his bed again, and he's just going to continue until he does this again to you. Because in his case, more, maybe not so much in another man, but he's just going to try to, not get the commitment until he just makes that decision, obviously. And I did ask him later, if I would have gone back with you before you gave me the ring, would you have given it to me so quickly? He says no, that he wouldn't have.
You did it textbook, and it was certainly a gamble to one degree or another. And what I find most interesting, and this happens a lot, the saying, it's always darkest before the dawn, those types of things, in our world, like sayings like that those 2 weeks that he just ghosted you out of nowhere was really another sign that he was wrestling. And you see, the worthy opponent strategy, which is really what you enacted, was that you were not going to take that kind of behavior. It's significant in getting the man to see you as the prize that he's going to win. And then he did everything in his power to get what it is that he wanted. But if you hadn't done it that way, he wouldn't even have connected to what he wanted. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. Yes.
And you did it. And I give you, a lot of praise for that, because I know how incredibly hard it is to do. And I think you hit on something. There's an old saying, those who pay attention. And I think what that means at its core is that when you hire help in whatever it is, you're going to more likely do it in the way that the person who's helping you recommends, just by, it's our very nature. Well, I'm paying for this, so it must, in other words, you pay for a lawyer, you take his advice. You pay to see your doctor, you take the medicine he prescribes, most generally, right?
Yes, correct.
It's the same idea that that someone like myself wouldn't really be in business unless they were getting results and knew something that would be helpful and give you the best chance of winning.
Yes, and actually it's funny, I just wanted to add in, like, there's so many people that I know, friends and just people that I've met, be it because, I don't know, if I'm maybe comes up and I've been shopping when I was, getting everything together for the engagement party and all that, and so many people have recommended to you, like, that are now following you. I can see them because I see who my friends are that follow you on Instagram. And, everybody's always like, I even have one of my best girlfriends just texted me while I was out. She's like, oh, our friend, it's a male friend. She's like, he knows that it's his fault that he's having problems with women. And it's like, but I told him he can get help for that. And that, our friend, her coach. And I'm like, I don't think Coach Paula coaches men, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, like, everybody like knows and that how things are working for me with you. And people even come now for me for advice about things. Like, I have a girlfriend now that she was having problems, but she's been pretty much chasing the man she's after. And she just told me yesterday, she's like, you know what? I'm listening to you. I've gone completely no contact with him.
And how's it working?
Well, so far he hasn't come back, but it's only been a couple of days. So we'll see what happens. But I told her, look, either he's going to if he's really interested, he's going to come back to you. And if he doesn't, it's because he was never interested enough, and good riddance.
I always say, when in doubt, wait him out. Because just like what you alluded to before, we all know it as women, and we've all felt it, whereby it's the men we want least that come for us the most. It's just an ironic twist of nature that unfortunately is kind of in the favor of the male of the species. It's because we as women are much more particular. We don't see men as the puppies in the world like they see us. So it's really incumbent upon us to do what we need to do with the men that we like, and it's exceedingly difficult. But anything worthwhile in life, I mean, here you have really, from what I have heard in terms of our sessions and so forth, this is really a man of your dreams.
I mean, basically, yes. And every day, honestly, he sweeps me off my feet more. I mean, he is we had spoken in the original podcast, I was looking for a hypergamous relationship, which is basically marrying up above one's social status and class. To say it sounds weird, but that's what it's called. Mm-hmm. So definitely that's what I was looking for, but not just that. I wanted a high value and high quality man, that I was going to be his queen, and that is what I saw in him, and I knew he was capable of. And every day it's more like that because of the way that the relationship is moving forward.
I'm so happy for you. You really deserve it. You've done the hard work. It has paid off in spades, and I just couldn't be happier for you. It's why I do what I do, and it just gives me the best feeling. You're so deserving, like all of us are. But when we do this hard work, it's even more, even more delicious in the end. You really worked hard, and it's paid off beautifully. I'm so glad that you now can go forward and are even helping others through just seeing you as certainly an example of what can happen when you do it in the quote-unquote right way, so to speak.
Yes, and still, this work isn't done. We still haven't got into the marriage part. So even the fact that, as you know, you're having me not move in with him yet. So, and everyone is aware of this and knows why, and they're all like, just do whatever Coach Paula tells you to do.
Well, it's true because, we want everything to go really, really well for you and not thwart any of these steps along the way, because you are incredibly close to the marriage. And, when you think about it, if your marriage is going to be for a lifetime, you're going to have plenty of years together to be living together, right?
Yes.
And, yes, it's interesting because many people listening will be saying, well, wait a minute. You also say, Paula, that you certainly can move in with someone once engaged. Again, I take each case by case. And what I mean by this is that I'm looking at this particular man, given his age, his status, the fact that he's never been married, the fact of the facts of how this came about, with what seems to be a 180-degree turnaround for him overnight, which it really wasn't. But what I mean by that is that we don't want to push things beyond his acceptance of them. Even though he's saying, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alejandra, that he wants you to move in with him. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So there is kind of your, if we look at things in terms of like, and again, men do this, and why I call it my worthy opponent strategy, because men look at things under the framework of sports, challenge, competition, conquering, and you're setting yourself up as a worthy opponent because this is one thing that you are holding out on until he comes forward with, is that the actual walking down the aisle? Is it the date? What is it for you?
Well, it's the at least setting a concrete date, like as in we reserve the place and have it, pay the deposit kind of thing is what, and for me, I'm holding out for, which is what I think is the appropriate, if I'm not correct, right?
Well,
And my
I think it is, and I think it can even go farther than that because I don't know how far out you're going to set the date, but we want the wonder to be there on some level. And as you know, that, I mean, you've been married twice before, that things change once you get married. They just naturally do. And so, like I said, if you think about this as your lifetime of commitment, there is no rush to move in together. And you will have that lifetime together. And if he's just that tiny bit of wondering, now I don't want you to do a bait and switch. In other words, if you've told him I would move in with you after we set the date, you certainly can. But it could be that you still keep one foot kind of where you are. In other words, like knowing your situation, and I won't divulge much about that, but that you could maybe go and spend more nights and have things there at his place or whatever. But a few nights a week you could still be spending apart from him prior to actually walking down the aisle. Is that correct?
Well, no matter what, it's probably going to be like that because I will at some point be spending time in Europe, and he says that he'll probably be spending 1 week there with me and 1 week back in the U.S. Back and forth. He'll travel, so it just naturally might happen like that either way.
Wonderful, wonderful, and that's really great for those who are in this situation. To one degree or another, it's kind of what I recommend because there is no rush to be spending every single night together. And if you don't hold something back, the wonder is harder. And we can say, well, wait a minute, people stay married for years and hopefully forever. How do you continue with the wonder if you're married? Well, it's a little harder. Any access to you lowers wonder. And so it's why I work still with married women who want, to just up their game, so to speak, to keep, like I talk about the mechanics of the whole thing well-oiled. And that, to a great degree, is just making him wonder. So if this is par for the course, so to speak, in the future, that you guys are going to be spending time away anyway, well, fantastic, great. You don't have to maneuver anything, really. It's just going to naturally occur. So any advice for anybody that might be listening and thinking, oh my gosh, it's just never going to get there? Like, for example, your friend that maybe it started out in an incorrect way. It can happen regardless. I know that. I've worked with women who have made that happen, and it can happen. But from your vantage point, any advice you can give?
Well, I'll say something that I think is really important, and that goes back to your concept, or what you write about as far as consumers and buyers. It's all kind of irrelevant if the man is just a consumer nonetheless. So in the case, for example, this friend of mine that called me yesterday to tell me this, from everything she's been telling me all along, the guy's a consumer. So I don't want to tell her, but I really don't think it's going to work out in the end. Well, I've kind of sort of subtly told her, but it's just not a good situation for her no matter how you look at it. So it's just to her benefit nonetheless to fall back.
And I don't know any of the particulars, but, I say to a couple of things. If he's already made a decision, for example, if he's married and you're seeing him, the chance of that is almost nil. That's like betting on one number and throwing the dice on the roulette wheel. It can happen, but because the man has already made a decision, even if he's not in love, this is all in the last chapter of my book, why a man will cheat but not leave his wife. And that is because men live by their decisions. They feel it is the right thing to do. And no matter, only 3% of men who have affairs will ever leave their wife for the woman with whom they're having the affair, even if they're in love with that woman. And that's simply because men live via their decisions, not their feelings. Now, if the man is not married, the odds are a little bit better, but it's going to be harder with a man who's showing you that and I don't ever recommend, if he's coming up on the consumer versus buyer relationship test, which anybody can take by going to willhecommit.com, if he's coming up as an ultimate consumer, your chances are just incredibly low. Now, a mixed messages consumer, your odds are a little bit better, but it's going to be all about what you do. And again, it's going to take a lot of hard work, time, and that may or may not be depending upon where you are in your life, your age, whether or not you want children, all manner of things. It's going to be what you decide to do and how long you decide to wait. And as we know, time alone will not do anything to change a consumer into a buyer. But when you do the right things coupled with the right time, you do have a shot of moving a man up the scale. So there's my kind of diatribe on consumer versus buyer in that respect. Sometimes our wants are wrestling with what we know intellectually. In other words, our heart versus our intellect. That happens a lot. So it's just going to be, I always believe, it is helpful to even just get an evaluation from someone like myself, and you can decide whether or not you want to really go forward with it with a mindful approach to see if you can move him up the scale. And then, you let things play out, and they will reveal themselves.
Okay, Coach Paula. Well, obviously I'm looking forward to my relationship continuing going as well as it is. And again, all the credit to you, even if, as you say, I put in the work, but I couldn't have done it without your guidance. And hopefully we will get eventually to that marriage.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for doing this today and catching us up. I know the listeners are going to be so happy that you did this, because when one of us have this kind of win, it's kind of for all of us as women, because we're all a collective, and it gives each of us hope for the future, and knowing that there are possibilities, and that through just a little mindfulness and following, there's an order to things, that it can happen. So again, I thank you so much for doing this today.
Thank you, Coach Paula.
Absolutely. And be well and Godspeed. And I can't wait to hear. Maybe you will come back and update us on the wedding and give us all that good news too.
Yes.
So nice to have Alejandra back from episode 69. If you are interested in hearing her story and that episode that started it all, many women who work with me actually just came on the podcast to get my thoughts and feelings And then we end up having a great conversation, and more understanding takes place, and we start working together. Alejandra was so ready. I can't say enough great things about her in terms of her willingness to do what it takes, because as we know, things are not always what they appear to be to us when we are emotionally involved. Very hard to see the forest for the trees. And commitment is important for us, and that means really setting our sights for the end result, setting our GPS, and that's what my GPS program is all about. Because when we are the mechanics of our relationships, when we are the mechanic of the man that we're with, we can really go the distance. And then it's not only us that gets what we desire and deserve, it's actually the man getting what he really wants and needs as well. Men look to us as women to direct them in relationships, and men do best in committed relationships, really committed relationships, marriage. Studies show that married men are much healthier and happier than those who are single, and men deeply desire the connectedness and the purpose, marriage, and having their best friend. Remember, he sees you as his total package, confidant, sexual partner, everything, his best friend, all of it. While you may not see him as your best friend, because a female best friend is what you know and have. You have that confidant. He needs that from you, and it is important that you provide that. And if you're not actively directing your relationship onto the right path, your Mr. Right could end up walking out of your life. I'm so glad that did not happen for Alejandra, and as she said, it could have easily. Again, episode 69, take a listen to that. And if you haven't, make sure that you take the consumer versus buyer relationship test on the man that you're with so that you can see where he is, if he's in the state of being a consumer or a buyer, a la my book. I hope you get that. To get started, if you haven't, again, you can be listening here for the first time, or you can be actually someone who has been listening for a while. If you have, I know you will want to join the 80/20 Wonder Club. It is up and going, and if you don't know about it, it's a club I created for wonder women like yourself. I talk about being an 80/20 wonder, because love, like life, is best lived in 80/20. We want to strive for 100% of what gets us what we desire and deserve, but if we strive for 100%, we usually live in the 80%, and that's what does the trick. So you can go to the 8020wonder.club, that's the 8020wonder.club, and you will understand how to become part of the club, what the club is. It is a wonderful place to get all the episodes as soon as they come out, because now on your regular listening platform, you are only getting one episode every 2 months each season. That's only 6 a season, or a year, however you want to look at it. And in the 80/20 Wonder Club, you get them all the time. As you know, it takes a lot to continue to make a man wonder in the small yet significant ways that make the difference between heartbreak and success. I know these discussions and coaching conversations help you, and it's why I created the club, because you can also have a lot more than just the episodes. You will get them all in a categorized place, so that you can actually listen in terms of age and thing going on in the relationship, like it's a divorce dating or getting an ex back, and you get multimedia content from me, you get a chance to ask me a question and have it here answered. And when I say here, I mean, yes, on the podcast, but I might also be answering you specifically and helping you on your journey. That's what this podcast is all about. And the club goes even deeper. You get another evaluation, and you get my book, and you are just really much more involved. And it's that kind of involvement rather than just what I call shelf help and listening here. And listening as an observer rather than actually getting in deeper. As you can see from someone like Alejandra, when you do the work, it pays off. And that's what I want for you. So I'm glad you were here today as part of this. I hope to see you in the clubhouse, the 8020 Wonder Club. That's the 8020wonder.club. And until then, and as always, for any man in your life, remember to make him wonder. I trust you got a lot of good information from today's video, and I enjoy bringing you content that is valuable for success in your romantic life. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the alert bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And if you want more on any of the content you see here, you can go to my book, Why Won't He Commit? How a Man Decides to Make You the One. You can order it at any fine retailer where you get your books. And if you want more on me or any of my programs, my podcast, go to coachpaulagrooms.com, and we could be talking soon.